And we're back. This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Videodrome from 1983, directed by David Cronenberg, and tonight we're joined by friend of the show, yes, he exists too, Ryan Nagel.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us on this momentous occasion where, like, it seems like people are like, oh man, it's Videodrome, I can't believe it. And like, we've talked about David Cronenberg twice before.
Twice. I think it's just the lasting power of Videodrome, Jarrett, and the implications that it means for society.
I'm pretty sure that this is the first time and still the last time that cancer bullets show up in a Criterion movie.
So far.
So
it's only downhill from here, is what you're saying.
Pretty much. There's nothing left to look forward to because there's none of that. There's no like, man. Do you guys listen to the commentary track?
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a bit. I'm just going to get it out of the way right now, where there's like David Cronenberg's telling this anecdote about like James Woods with like the chest cavity thing in, and I guess James Woods was talking about becoming the bearer of the slit to Debbie Harry, and Debbie Harry responds, "Now you know how it's like," and he's like, "I thought that was very amusing," and I was just like, Jesus, what a blue story.
Mm-hmm. There's a few like that in that that commentary.
There sure is. But it's a different era, 2004, recording the commentary.
Yeah.
But jumping the gun here, the tagline for this film, RJ.
Mm-hmm.
First, it controls your mind. Then it destroys your body.
Oh, baby.
As the president of a trashy TV channel, Max Wren is desperate for new programming to attract viewers. When he happens upon Videodrome, a TV show dedicated to a gratuitous torture and punishment, Max sees a potential hit and broadcasts the show on his channel, which is like so weird. It's like, yeah, people are gonna love it. However, after his girlfriend, wow, I mean that's some shit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a leap.
Yeah, just special lady friend.
Mm-hmm.
Auditions for the show and never reached. That doesn't happen either. She says, and for the show and never returns. Max investigates the truth behind Videodrome and discovers that the graphic violence may not be as fake as he thought.
Don't. Yeah, I read that synopsis before, and I was like, the last half of it, I was like, they kind of missed the mark a bit, but.
Yeah. It's a little superficial, but some people say that we're superficial too.
It's enough to get people in the theater renting that tape, and they go, "Oh, that sounds pretty good." What is the mystery of this Videodrome?
Videodrome, is that the Canadian way to say it?
Well, I mean, it's a person who's never heard the word Videodrome spoken out loud. It could be anything.
Right.
I've heard some people mispronounce some pretty simple words, even on this very podcast, but particularly in real life, at the comic book store.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a movie that has everyone seen this movie more than once?
Yes.
Actually, I had only seen it once.
Okay.
I think before this, but this would be my second time watching it.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay. And RJ, you've seen it a few times?
I have seen it. I think this week rounds out with the commentary, I think 4 now. So it's probably my most watched that Criterion that we've hit so far.
Okay.
Maybe ever. I don't know.
I've definitely seen it more than that. I couldn't put a number to it, but it's less than 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, I even have a poster of this in my office at work.
Is it anything like my poster?
Just like, but mine's also surrounded by some other posters. You got to fill up that roster. You have to have the entire deck of the ship behind you, RJ. Right now, what we're talking about, fans, is RJ has his lone poster of Data just on the wall, right by the light switch. It's quote unquote life sized at a mere like 2 feet tall, 24 inches tall.
Yeah, barely.
Yeah.
Barely, but that's what only non YouTube listeners or YouTube listeners only wouldn't be privy to that, and that's just for the guests that we have on the show. That's just for them. That's not really for me.
Right.
And I think we undercut a little bit the debut of friend of the show Ryan Nagel, Creepsville born and raised, and also I should mention
From the sewers.
from the sewers with me, him, and Mutagen Man growing up together. But this is an entirely Canadian podcast. I mentioned before, this is the culmination of 4 years, 3 Canadian co-hosts, 1 Canadian movie. It's all coming together. It's
right.
Magical.
Absolutely.
Magical.
So this movie opens up with menacing music, some menacing Howard Shore music. And then we get kicked to this Civic TV animation, which I don't know if that would pass muster nowadays. It's like this fat guy on a couch.
Yeah, in the recliner.
Yeah.
The jingle's pretty good though.
Yeah.
So I like it.
I learned from the commentary, or because I've listened to this commentary actually once before when I got this DVD ages ago, that the Civic TV is sort of the stand-in for City TV, which I still believe still exists to this day and is a much bigger deal than this Channel 83 rinky-dink operation. But because they actually called, what was it called, RJ? Baby Blue Movies?
Baby Blue movies?
Yeah, so that was in
commentary?
Yeah, in Toronto, on City TV, they would play softcore movies, and they call them Baby Blue movies. So Civic TV is kind of modeled around that idea. It's very
interesting.
It's accurate to the Toronto area, and this movie is unapologetically set in Toronto. It's not. It's not just some city in America. They explicitly say this is Toronto, which is really cool. It's a rare treat for something that other people in the world watch and like, and it's actually explicitly set in Canada. Often people are they upturn their nose at the smell of Canadian offerings. They're like, oh, this just seems like America Light.
That's what they say. I can't remember if it was the commentary or one of the other videos in the supplements that I watched, but Cronenberg's talking about, he was speaking with Roberto Benigni, director of what's that movie won the Oscar? Jarrett? Life is Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, Roberto Benigni, and Italian boy, Ryan. And he was talking to Cronenberg, and he was like, I don't really know if I want to come to Canada because all I see is these horrifying things in your movies or something like that. And Cronenberg was like, I really like that because he's like, he saw Canada in my version, and he's like, but he knew it was Canada and not somewhere else. That's how Cronenberg talks.
So RJ, based on the films of Italy that you've seen, will you be jumping on a plane anytime soon? You're not a woman, so you're kind of mostly safe.
I'd be mostly safe, but there are a few. I would rather go to the flesh centric Toronto than the flesh centric Italy. But they're
beefsteak.
No beefsteak. Their focus is on different parts of flesh, if you know what I mean.
I hear you. I see what you're laying down.
Vague and unprosecutable. I didn't say anything incriminating about anyone.
I would love to see you go to Italy, RJ, and just refrain from speaking in an accent at the whole time. That would be worth the price of going.
Got a beefsteak, a tortellini.
Oh boy.
We don't have any Italian listeners. It's fine.
We do.
We do?
We do. A lot of Italian women, actually.
Oh, well, I'm standing up for them.
Yeah.
I will be their champion, Jarrett.
Okay. Very well.
Yeah.
So this movie, man, it brings you back to the 80s when movies were good, like Back to the Future, RJ.
Oh, baby.
Honestly, this movie opens up very similar to Back to the Future, which this movie also predates, because you have this is I don't know, this style of filmmaking where the camera focuses on a subject, which is the television screen, where we see his girl Friday, his secretary, who's I'm trying to find the name of the actress who plays her.
She's a Canadian actress, which most of them are.
Yes, other than probably James Woods and Debbie Harry, I think.
Yeah, they're the only two who aren't. And actually, just to interject on you for a second, one funny thing about that with all the Canadian actors Andy watched it with me, and she's actually seen Videodrome before too. But she watched it with me, and she's like, everyone's real like frumpy and like dumpy looking in this movie. And I was like, they're real people, baby. It's like those are just real Canadians. I was like, not everyone's like Brad Pitt, you know, and in moment because of that.
Bagul, you've come back. So yeah, Bridie is Julie Connor.
Yep.
I think she's like really good in this. I was just going to throw that out there. So she opens up where she mentions the date of the date recording, which is Wednesday the 23rd. And RJ, what day is it today?
Well, if you checked our Instagram, you would find out that it is Wednesday, my dude.
And
it's
not
just Wednesday.
It is the 23rd.
The 23rd, which is a astronomical alignment, I think, because there's no way we could have planned that. No. It's unbelievable.
No, based on like the chances of us taking a week off or delaying things, it's pretty magical. I mean,
it's all coming together, guys.
That's right. I think Dale Cooper would say something about two things happening at the same time. It's time to pay attention. Something. Anyway, so back to my point about this like fine artisanal film craft, where the camera sets up on the television monitor and it pulls back, and it's the credits. And you start seeing the room, and it's just establishing these like nice little things about like we have a character who's been named, who's important enough. He lives in this weird world where a woman makes him recordings instead of alarm clocks to make sure he gets to work. It explains who he is. There's even like the content of the movie's laid out with the focus on the television screen. The room pans out. You see his room. One of the main like actual settings of the movie, where I'd say like at least probably a third of the action takes place in his apartment, and it's a very important space. And the camera just kind of pulls out and explores the room, which is just like in Back to the Future, where it focuses on the clock and it pulls along and pans through the space, and there's no music playing over it either. So it just like I don't know. I really appreciated it. It just sets up so much stuff really quickly. Economical. Dig it. You know what's also economical? Shady Japanese businessmen in hotel rooms in downtown Toronto selling smut. That's economics right there. And in fact, only one of them is actually Japanese.
So did you remember that little anecdote about the guy in there who
went on to become a minister
for Government of Canada, and apparently he got questioned on his appearance in this movie as a pornography dealer.
Yeah,
which is wild.
Yeah, I'm not sure
which one of the guys is it.
I think it's the is it the actual Japanese guy, David
the guy who
Subachi?
Actually opens up the movies.
Oh, so the guy sitting down.
Yeah, it's David Subuchi, who is a former politician in Ontario. He was a PC from 1995 to 2003, cabinet minister during the Mike Harris era. He was the first. He was the first Japanese Canadian elected to a provincial legislature.
Do you think it was because of Videodrome?
I think it might have pushed him over the edge.
I hope so, but another interesting little tidbit.
No, and his opponents would use it against him.
Yeah, apparently it's like, well, he's just in this hardcore pornography movie.
No. Kind of. So, what are they selling, RJ?
Porno.
What kind of porno?
Samurai Dreams.
Yes. What's so there's like a scene that I think would be a great at some point use of a screenshot, RJ, where it's like three men sitting around a table watching Samurai Dreams. I'm like, that's us. That's us. Like, we're not in the same room together, but collectively a snapshot of what this podcast is on this recording.
Hell yeah! I think even a friend of the show, Ryan Nagel, actually watched the Samurai Dreams supplement. Did you not?
I've seen that before. I know it's on. I know it's on that DVD. Is it elsewhere?
Yeah, on my DVD, it has the Samurai Dreams Raw, and it has two commentary tracks over it. So for my supplement homework, I watched both of those. I don't really want to get into that now, but I was saying I was ready to talk about it.
Is there also like some raw Videodrome footage on there as well? I believe
there was, and I think that had commentary as well. I didn't watch those ones. I thought maybe you guys would have.
Did you watch Videodrome with your wife, Ryan?
I offered, and she was like for a second almost having it, and then I started like kind of describing it, and then even I stopped myself and I was like, I think you would hate it, so maybe let's just not.
Yeah. so we find out from this scene that Oriental sex is unnatural, but we also find out that there's too much class in Samurai Dreams, because it seems like this imagery is like, this is pretty like played out, and Max Wren, he's just like, I want something a little harder. And so he visits his good friend Harland, a satellite pirate, who's found something good somewhere in Malaysia. Which, I mean, hell, if I was to believe that something like Videodrome existed, I'd assume it was Malaysia too.
Sure, why not?
So yeah, gotta say that like hooded dudes torturing people in a room with like a clay wall, that's totally my aesthetic.
Oh yeah, big time. And I don't know if you watched what was it? I called it Transmissions. I can't even remember which supplement it was, the Transmissions one. But did you hear what the snuff film is actually kind of based on?
I remember. Again, I watched that. I didn't get it around to it this time, so remind me.
Apparently, a lot of the people who worked on this film, and including David Cronenberg, had at one point either worked or been through Toronto's many abattoirs and slaughterhouses. So a lot of the aesthetic of the torture snuff films is from actual Canada packers packing plants, because it's like the wet floor, the guys with the hoods and stuff like that. That's what they base it on, because it's just like, it's a slaughterhouse. And they're like, I think one of them describes it, he's like, it was one of the most unpleasant jobs I've ever had. And he's like, we thought it would fit.
There is that one anecdote though about like some extras that were like really getting into it, and there was like this one woman who like kept coming back and getting like doing her own makeup and being like, maybe they'll do it again. And I'm like, that's I could totally see people doing into it. I mean, especially if like it's fake, but like maybe they'll change their mind.
It really sells the idea of Videodrome as a movie and as an idea itself. It's like, it's like people are into this.
Yeah.
So
well, that would be like, I mean, if you're like trying to think of like what would be like, what does like snuff look like? Like what would it, if it existed? Because fun fact, it doesn't exist. It's a kind of an urban myth that, even though like Charlie Sheen will say that he saw it at a party once and like call the FBI about it. True story. There's like no actual like real line of connection that has ever been documented and existed and anyone's ever been prosecuted for. We've gotten close, guys. We've gotten close, but haven't quite landed it. There's no like cabal that's like doing this stuff. Sadly. So anyway, we get that, and we get this mystery set up, because at the end of the day, this movie really is just a film noir, guys, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It totally, it's like, there's a mystery, there's femme fatales, there's like the good girl, there's like this like kind of ridiculous plot outside of one's own control. And it's just kind of like, it doesn't quite play that way. And it really hit me watching it this time, just like how noir it was. And I think it's the scene at the Greek restaurant that like, where she's like, Max, the head has its own philosophy. And I'm like, man, this is like, you could imagine Humphrey Bogart, getting into some rough stuff and piercing, Katharine Hepburn's ears or something like that,
You think Bogey would be into that?
He kind of is a James Woods. He's a short, kind of unattractive looking man who's just really charismatic.
I kind of see what you mean. I also liked again, I can't remember. I watched so many of these things. I can't remember which one it's from, but Cronenberg is talking about the ear piercing scene, and just since you brought it up, and he said it was because he had to take his wife's earrings out once.
Oh yeah.
And I think he said he was like his like legs buckled and he almost fainted.
Yeah.
Because he was like, what am I doing? And he's like, I think it would be a really good gateway for people who are masochists. And I was like, okay. All right, Dave, whatever you say, bud.
Big Dave. So the next scene, I actually wrote notes, if you can't tell.
Wow,
no,
you are a professional podcaster.
I know, right? I know. I mean, we had a guest this week. I know. I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I might have to do a little bit more heavy lifting. So, I don't know. I didn't know. I don't know this guy. This is the first time we've ever met.
Very true.
And he's friends with RJ. I mean, he's not the most discerning human being.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff stacked against you this week, but I
Right.
think you'd be pleased to know that I think all three of us professional Canadians did our civic duty and took notes this week, which is pretty outstanding.
Yeah, I
So-
got my notes going here. I'll jump
Yeah,
in
you-
if
oh,
I
yeah.
got more
Abs-
note add additions.
Jump in anytime. So next we get James Woods, Max, on the set of the Rena King show, and again, this is again another piece of like really great filmmaking where the camera's just on Max as he's like as they're kind of like doing the preamble chat thing, testing the microphones, all that, and then like the camera pans over to a monitor with, and that's when we first see the Debbie Harry character. With Nikki Brand, and like I think that's like so good. Like the first time you see her, it's like this moderated view of her. You don't get to see her just like with your own eyes. You see her through the television monitor, which again, very thematic with this idea that the monitor is the eye of the viewer and all that Marshall McLuhan fun stuff. And also we get introduced to old Doctor or Professor Brian Oblivion, our Marshall McLuhan stand-in. So like one thing I noted here was smoking on television. That brings me back when adults just sitting around debating boringly on TV about if this is morally right or not, or if you're serving just like what the audience wants. And then we get finally the name of this channel other than Civic TV. It's Channel 83, and I made the note that I want Channel 83 in my life. Why can't we have a? I mean, I guess like the internet's basically just Channel 83 at this point, so it's kind of redundant.
I was gonna say you could probably email Oliver for some 4chan tips because I know he's pretty tapped into that scene. I think that might be similar to what you're looking for.
Hop on Live Leak or something like that. Some rotten.com.
Oh, Jarrett.
Oh, big shout outs to those internet classics.
Yeah.
So there's like there's the one bit that jumped out at me from this whole exchange where it's just kind of this interview and like the whole idea. This is like the meet cute of Max and Nikki, where he's like he talks about her red dress. It's like he just says like how creepily he says it too. It's like talking about like being like highly stimulated. He's like, like your dress. Like he's like so like amused by himself, but also catches himself and being like so like proud of what he just said. And and then she's kind of like, well, I am. And he's like, oh, I'd love to take you to dinner. And then it's like
great, the best.
Yeah. And
asks her out on the thing while and then the conversation they have like over top of Professor Oblivion's like first monologue of the movie. That's hilarious.
And soon all of us will have special names, we learn from Brian Oblivion. That seems like something like a TV guru would say, and it's kind of true. Like
Twitter names,
like Ryan's fantastic Twitter likes that pop up on my feed.
different handles and things like that. He was right.
That's right. We just change our identities like we change our clothes.
Yep. Barn loafs, chud loafs, whatever you want, buddy.
Whatever you want to be. So then we kind of change from that scene to like it's back to Max with Harland, and he's like, we're back to Videodrome. He's asking, what's the plot? It's like, what? I don't know. So this is like I don't know if you call this a complaint. It comes up later, specifically when Nikki decides she wants to audition, and like how everyone's a little slow on the uptake in this movie. Everybody's just kind of a little dumb, where you're kind of like, why does he assume that it's not real? Like, why does he think that it's fake? Because in his mind, he's like, well, I can't imagine that anyone would do this for real. But like, nothing about the aesthetics of the show seems to suggest that this is like not real. But he's just like, what's the plot? And of course, there's also that this is for perverts only, which I feel like is a good screen grab for somebody out there.
Yeah, you're right though, and he even mentions like later, I think, when he's like, it would be cheaper and easier to like, emulate it. It's like, how would that be if you just kidnap people or whatever?
Well, I guess
actually torture them. That sounds cheaper to me.
Well, that's that's the thing with like, so there is that, but that's like always been the argument about like the existence of snuff is that like, well, the risk is so high. Like, why would you like risk going to jail for the rest of your life when you could just fake someone being killed? And so like, that's always been like, well, why would you do that? Unless it's like, well, there's other reasons, like, like a serial killer or something like that, or like someone that just like that's fucked up. It's like, would these people also be organized enough to like distribute these films, or did they just have it in their own private stash in the closet kind of thing? And that's one of the key things about like this idea of like a snuff network. But so this is like kind of playing into that fear, I guess, that there's this, like, now that videotapes exist, because like video technology was like relatively new, and because like one of the things that would hold back like a enterprising filmmaker from murdering people for cheap is like the cost of film would be expensive. Then you have to like learn how to process it yourself, and now you have to like now you have evidence in that regard, and like you have to get someone to develop it for you unless you learn how to do it yourself, which is possible. But with video, it's so easy. You just go out and buy a camera, and then you can be like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and hanging out with your friend Otis, having a good time. So that was always the nightmare of like the advent of the video age, is that it would make snuff that much more possible. So but there's that part of it, but it's like kind of like this, I don't know. It feels like Max is a little slow on the uptake on some of these things, particularly when it's like, I'm going to go audition. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh. I'm going to be murdered on TV. Like, he's like, what? What's going on? I don't know.
Yeah. So yes, I kind of got that. He's a little like nonchalant about it, like in the, not to jump ahead, but in those like scenes in the apartment and stuff.
Oh yeah, exactly. He's always just a little behind.
I think it's especially naive because he's like, it can't be real, but then he actually is like piercing ears and like seeing, like he's actually doing it too, kind of like the light version of it. So it's like, you're kind of involved in this. But there was one thing you said, Jarrett, that I was going to talk about, like the where there was that concern about the videos and stuff. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a thing about, they were talking about videotaping and things, like made things like actualize stuff. It's like it made it all real. It's like because you can record it now, it is real. It's in the world. It's like, even if you're doing it for real, like say you go kill someone in real life, that's really happening. But it's like you film it happening and then you put it out there, you distribute it. It's like it's real for other people now. Right. So it was like that kind of idea. And it's like, that's neat. That's cool.
That's cool. And then, I do love how they just name Pittsburgh because it's so banal. And it's perfect, though, because it makes it that much more fucked up, because you're thinking like, oh, if this is Malaysia, well, they do that all the time. And you're just getting a snapshot of making yourself feel good about like, oh, at least that doesn't happen here in America. But then you find out it's like, oh, it's Pittsburgh. They have democracy and they vote, but this is happening. What's happening? Like, this is disgusting. And suddenly it's like more close to home. I think that was like, it's a really brilliant little touch, because it's like, of all places, it's not like it's not even New York or Los Angeles. It's Pittsburgh.
What's the Canadian equivalent? Like Moose Jaw?
Winnipeg?
Winnipeg? Yeah, Winnipeg. Yeah. That's a good poll.
How about Debbie Harry's 80s workout outfit doing that radio show?
Yeah.
That
was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Well, you get sweaty when you're helping people emotionally, Jared.
That's right. I would say that up to this point, I found Debbie Harry's acting not the best. She gets into it. She gets her footing, like when she was like on the radio show. I found that it was like a little wooden, but she gets better as the film goes on.
Yeah. It never bothers me.
Yeah, it's minor thing.
Yeah, she serves the role that she's supposed to, I think, and like as that might sound like weird or blunt, but it's like I think she does what she needs to do. So
I feel like the most memorable parts for her are like the scenes where she like appears on the TV or like in Hallucinations, and those are good. So
I think that's where it kind of makes sense that, because she's like this musician, and like she was doing music videos, like she was like, at that period of time when music videos were becoming a thing, and that was like part of her appeal. Like she was doing that, so like when she's on TV, it makes so much more sense that she's on TV, and she's like way more in control than when she's like in the movie as an actor. I think there's something about that too, like just her style. So maybe there's like a real awareness of what she was doing there, but I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that too much. How about this hot take that RJ will know about the name Nikki Brand? That it's a reference to her nicking her shoulder when she gets cut, and when she brands herself with a cigarette butt. Huh?
Did they say that in the commentary?
Yes, David Cronenberg says that, and he says, I thought that was amusing.
There are a few other like kind of corny names and stuff too, like convex and stuff like that. So that's actually interesting. I wouldn't have picked up on that though, unless it was from the commentary.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's
I didn't know that either until I saw it.
Yeah. If we get the brilliant line that I ask RJ all the time, got any porno?
I mean, it's not just that he asks me, but sometimes it's like I'm at home, I'm having dinner with my family. It was a long day, and then the doorbell rings, and I go, and it's Jarrett, and he goes, "You got any porno?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Jarrett, yes, come on in."
Come, and then I say, "Want to try a few things?" So here's my joke: Netflix and chill, Videodrome and fuck.
Oh God.
If we weren't gonna get canceled from that earlier stuff you were talking about, could have been this. Could have been this.
I mean, come on, you got to think about Netflix here. I mean, they're just hanging out, and there's also like later on when you see on top of the undulating television, there's some Atari joysticks on top of there, and you're like, do you think like we saw there was some off-camera Atari played?
Gaming.
Yeah.
Games.
Is Nikki Brand a gamer? Was she into like that like Pac-Man stuff? I don't know if Pac-Man had been put onto console at that point, or that's too early. In 83, filmed late 82.
It was probably. I bet she was probably a gamer, but something really, really weird. Like, what's that one game? It's like Asterix or something like that, and it's like, what is that about? That one. That's my guess.
Pac-Man, 1980, but when was always localized the same in 1980 as well?
It did get ported to Atari. I know there was a home version of it. So
yes, I do know because I was watching that Netflix documentary on like video games that just came out too. And they mentioned that, and there's a whole about how Miss Pac-Man was like the big deal. They just literally threw a bow on Pac-Man, and suddenly like women love Pac-Man.
That's all it takes. I thought you were going to throw a bow on for this podcast just to appeal to a bigger demographic.
Ah, damn. I forgot
Next
to.
time.
Next time. So yeah, we get like some making love with some piercing in the ears, grinding. We get some like beginning of hallucination as the room pans back, which is really great. Again, this is like I think Cronenberg's really like pulling it all together at this point. Like everything he's going to become is showing up here, and it's kind of the culmination of like all his earlier stuff, which I think is pretty rough, and this movie feels pretty slick on the whole. But we also get some seriously wet dolly work, like on him just like nuzzling on Debbie Harry. Like it's just like real like I mean I can really hear that.
I did notice that too.
I think the note I wrote down was real Jarrett type behavior.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
So they have sex, and that's fun.
Cool.
There's some or as people would call it as like weird sex. There's actually an entire book on like Canadian film. It's called Weird Sex and Snowshoes, and it's like there's a whole thing on like Cronenberg and stuff like that, and because there's obviously Crash and stuff like that, but. That's neither here nor there. Hey, we get back to the office and we see some like very casual inter-office like sexual harassment when he just slaps that one lady's ass, and he's just like, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Hi." You're like,
she gives him a big smile.
Yeah, 83. And then we get the back to the baby blue type of footage, that Greco-Roman orgy tape, where it's just like. Ugh, it's so soft. It's so nice. What's the name of that character again? Masha.
Yeah,
Masha.
Yeah.
So he's like, he puts a call. She's an agent. He makes a call for, hey, you got to find me. You got to agent me Videodrome. You got to source it for me. And of course, we get this really great question. What kind of show would you make? So, RJ, what kind of show would you make?
It'd be a live feed of my bathroom, specifically the toilet. Things would the peak hour would be around 6 a.m. when I first get in there, and that's where most of the views would come from. I think.
Coffee in hand. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan? The coffee toilet business.
I cannot get on board with that. It's no food or drinks in the bathroom. That's taboo enough to be a show on Channel 83. You could just eat a whole meal on the toilet. That would be.
But see, that's the thing. No other food, no other drinks in there. It is strictly professional and it's strictly business oriented. And I know at least one friend of ours, all of ours, the collective ours, Sugarhead. He's on board with me. So
are you outing him as a?
No, he emailed in. Remember?
Oh, but now you're like saying like, so he's doing this. You're telling me that?
Well, he supported me.
Okay, but does he do it?
I don't know.
Let us know.
Email it next week.
Let us know, Sugarhead. So, subterranean market is just OnlyFans now. We cut out the middleman.
Oh,
you can go right. You can go right to the source.
Mm-hmm.
Get your freak on.
Sure. Good call.
So yeah, here's my note here about how people seem to be slow on the uptake in this movie. Oh, it has to be fake. Oh, you're going to Pittsburgh? What for? These are scary individuals. And you're like, okay. And this is a note about like one of the, I guess, themes of the movie is this like everybody seems to be on this road of self-destruction, which just seems very noirish, where everybody's just kind of, their fate's sealed before they even know it. And we got the infamous, I guess, probably best line in the movie, arguably, is about what Videodrome is and how it's dangerous. It's not like anything you know, Max. It's not like you. It has a philosophy, which is pretty scary stuff when you're talking about a video. Because at this point, we still don't know anything about what's going on with this broadcast. It is at this point just like some mysterious thing. You think, oh man, he's going to get involved with some like dangerous people that are just making this weird sicko stuff. And in the same scene though, we also have a bit that has jumped out at me every single time I've ever watched this movie, and it's when Masha's like, after she James Woods hits on her, and Masha's like, you're a little too old for me, and then she makes eyes at the waiter who is who is just like, oh, that guy, that hair, those like those eyebrows.
Yeah, Canadian.
He looks like he's wearing like fake eyelashes. Too.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
very
Totally.
Look.
Yeah. You're like, where did this guy come from?
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh yeah.
So much.
Yeah. Yeah. Very European. And then we get introduced to, like, I think one of the cooler ideas that's like low key brilliant in this movie is the cathode ray mission. Ray mission. I think that is so cool. So what this is, it's like you watch enough movies set in like Los Angeles, New York, and you always like, or these urban centers, and you always have these like missions where people are going in, where characters are down on their luck, or they're being shown as good people and they volunteer at the mission, and as people show up and they get food. Well, at the cathode ray mission, which is founded by Professor Oblivion, you get TV. And I'm like, man, that's a very thoughtful thing. And essentially, this role is now fulfilled by public libraries, but people aren't watching TV; they're just getting onto the internet, which made me want to ask the question to you two: did you guys ever use internet cafes? Do you remember when internet cafes was a thing?
Yeah,
I do remember that, but I feel like it probably predates like the acceptable age where I would go like and use it alone. But we're like kind of right on the cusp of that, I feel like.
Okay. That was just like
gaming cafes, especially. That feels like that was like a big thing, like right around then, I remember.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Oh yeah, that was because people didn't have access, and now there's too much access. So it was very thoughtful of Professor Oblivion to bring the signal to the disadvantaged, to make sure that they knew how horrible the world was around them, on top of their horrible situation. Very thoughtful. So I made a note here too. Like when we get up to Oblivion's office, like all the spaces and like the reality of this movie are so well done that you never question it. Like you never, I don't know, to me, like I'm not even aware that I'm watching a movie when I'm watching this. It just feels like I'm watching Videodrome, and like there's like only like what 4 or 5 different settings. There's his office, there's like the shelter building itself, there's Max's apartment, there's Civic TV, there's like the Videodrome room like on the video, then there's like kind of like the eyeglass store that you see a couple times, and then I guess like you see what's his name's the pirate office.
Harlan's.
Harlan, yeah, see, but that's it, and it's so good, like because you're like, oh yeah, that's all you need. This movie's so low key, but it feels bigger than it is. Like,
I have a note for that. Like all of all of the like set decoration is so well done. Like you're right, like they don't go a lot of places, and it's like everything feels like so like actually like lived in and real and kind of grimy. It fits the movie really good.
Yeah, that's a credit to Carol Spear, the art director on like all of Cronenberg's best movies, who just died in the last year or so. Brought a lot to these movies, though, for sure. I always like the line, the monologue is his preferred mode of conversation, which I feel like this podcast is bordering on right now with me talking all this time. And then, oh man, then there's the bit where the hallucinations are getting really crazy. Max is really freaking out, and Friday comes by in the midst of one of these, and he just starts slapping her, and then it's like, luckily he didn't, and I was like, felt real bad about that. And then his excuse is that I think I'm getting a rash or something.
Yeah, that's funny. He's like saves it like with his other comment, like he acts like pretty good to it, but the rash thing is like, what?
Yeah.
Are you saying when you guys get rashes, you don't go around hitting people?
I'm guessing it's like more like how he actually feels to a bit to like his hallucination with the slit and stuff, but it doesn't fit to like the justification to his secretary.
Yeah, I forgot to actually make the note of the appearance of the slit, I guess, which I think is like, yeah, it's coming up quick because I made a note here about if James Woods was a fat guy, how deep would his body slit be? It would just be like, would it be very deep? Or because it's a good thing that he's like super lean and skinny, and then it's like, well, which is also more of a challenge for your makeup guys, I guess, but not really, because I'm sure they have workarounds, I guess. But yeah, then we also get at this point after the rash bit the debut of the pulsating tape, the Betamax tape, which is like so cool. And I was going to comment that the Criterion DVD for this is like one of the best designs they've ever done. Absolutely, hands down. I love that it's got the little color bar on the outside of it, which is one of those like things that there it is. Everybody, mine's not beside me, but I've always like loved that it's the tape. That is like so smart, such a simple little thing. And I don't know if Criterion's really taught themselves that often with this packaging. It's the real deal.
This is one of the good ones.
Yeah,
for sure. The best.
Is the Blu-ray pretty similar? Because I only have the DVD. Is it like the exact same?
It's the exact same. I was wondering about that too.
Smaller.
Because I remember looking at RJ's Blu-ray, because I was like, I only have the DVD too. I never upgraded, but I think the DVD, it's better, I would argue, than the Blu-ray, even though like, the Blu-ray will look better, but because it's actually more of an accurate size, it's a little beefier than the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray is going to be a little bit thinner and smaller. But
yeah, I thought that, or I didn't know if like the booklet makes up most of the the actual insert stuff. If that was the exact same, then maybe it would be similar. But
the Blu-ray, it fits in with all the other Blu-rays. It's like the way that they package it together. They broke it down a little bit to like fit, but it's the same otherwise.
Same idea.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, another like really nice touch is like, so when Max goes back to Oblivion to meet him, and just this like tossed off idea, and again, this is also the noir thing, where like someone's like, I want to meet the millionaire who lives in the mansion, but it's just like, here it's just like this mission, and it's like, well, you go into his study, and it's just like, in this case it's like, he died, I'm pretending he's still alive. It's like, no, I curate his legacy via these tapes. I think that's like that's a great idea. That is like, it's an idea in itself. It's just like barely even touched upon, and it's just tossed out there, and because you never really get to know her specifically. She's just kind of like a character that is there, but she's like super important because she's like the leader of the counter revolution.
Yeah, I want to talk about that more like at the very end, like about what you think about her and cathode ray mission at a bigger thing. But you're right, like at that point, that is kind of like all.
Yeah, Bianca, that's her.
Yeah, I like, also really small, I like how the like shelving they have like in that room is so great. It reminds me like of like a library, or I'm sure other like film stuff would have like archives, things like that. But that's just like all of the dated stuff like that is so great, like the tech and everything. I love all of that. But
it's part of the charm. It's wicked.
Yeah, and then and this is where you start getting introduced to this whole idea that like, oh, they've beamed a tumor into you. And you're like, because this is the point where like it's all explained with the pulsating tape, and then it's just like, oh yeah, I don't know, you've got a brain tumor, like something, and you're like, and that's when the movie goes like, you're like, what? Like that's ridiculous. This is the stupidest thing. And then but the movie just runs with it. And you're like, yes, I accept this now. Like, and you're like, that's the movie. And then you're like, but at the same time, you're like, well, is this real? And then you meet Barry Convex. You get these like mysterious phone calls, and it's like there's a car waiting for you out front. There again, Noir, the detective, being brought in a mysterious like driver takes him to basically go to an eye appointment, which reminds me I have to get my eyes checked soon too. And then you get to meet Barry Convex, this like very like Canadian 70s actor, if there ever was one. Like everything about him, just like the kind of sideburns, the haircut, the way about him. He's just like he encapsulates that so well. And he starts explaining what's going on, and it's like kind of unbelievable. It's like what you're like, what's this about now? You're recording memories. Oh, you're the first person we know about who's like had this. We're going to put this helmet on your head now in this like totally like cheap back room in this cardboard box. You have this giant like metal thing, and it's like, yeah, put this on your head. And it's like literally the boiler room too. I think there's like a water tank there, and they just like, yeah, sit down here. Put this on. We'll make some adjustments. You're going to see things in pixel vision. And apparently, you learn from the commentary track that isn't James Woods, because James Woods was incredibly paranoid that this thing being put on his head would electrocute him. Carol Spears showed him, it's like, you could wear this. You could jump in a puddle of water. You're going to be fine. But he refused. So it's actually David Cronenberg who's in that amazing shot with the helmet on as it pulls back.
Awesome.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I think he made some comment like James Woods was like really, really small, so he had to they had to tear out the bottom of the pants a little bit so Cronenberg could fit into it. So yeah, we get that amazing shot, and then it's off into the fantasy that's videoed, and then I think that's where, what is it, the scene, because now we get him whipping who he thinks is Nikki, but it's actually Masha. And it's like question mark. And then he wakes up, he finds her dead, gagged in bed with him. He calls Harlan to come over with a camera. And then it's curious because she just disappears. And it's like it's very like, it's one of those things, it's like it's open-ended. And you're like, huh, what did happen there? Because at some point you realize, oh, Harlan could have been lying about seeing nobody there, but we do see that there's nobody in the bed. It's an interesting thing, because then like the fine lines of like hallucination and what is reality in this movie completely are just like gone. We now get the iconic Videodrome jacket that he basically wears for the rest of the movie. It's when he kind of goes into almost Travis Bickle mode for the rest of this thing. And then we get I guess you get the big reveal again. The noir twist of like, Harlan was in on it the whole time with Barry Convex, and it's recall 2 wonderful years. They like, it's so loving when Harlan says that like, it was a really great time, and he's like, he was a plant the entire time. And there's this great line of talking about, why would anyone watch a scum show like Videodrome?
People say the same about this podcast. Why would anyone listen to those weird fucking dudes? You know,
it's a good screen grab. You got to get that. Why would anyone watch the scum show?
Oh, I got screen grabs out the
wazoo.
Wazoo, my boys.
I'm gonna try to speed up here a little bit. We get Harlan going on this like, because basically it's like almost like this right wing screed talking about how North America, it's getting soft. We got to be pure and direct. And then he becomes like a Manchurian candidate that has like tapes being inserted into his body cavity, which is like, pretty fucking cool to me. I made a note here: kill your partner and give us the podcast. I don't know why I wrote that. And then something about, so he goes and kills his partners at City, or it's not City TV. And then of course there's this great thing where he's like pretending that he's been shot, I guess, and then Friday helps, or Friday show helps, and I'm like, Friday should know better. And he gives her that last long look where he's like saying sorry, and you're like, oh, really, really feel bad about that. But that's the last time he's recognizable in the movie, because at that point, I think that's like his last shred of humanity. Like, because at that point, he's completely now just like a void. He is just a vessel that is there to be kind of taken control of by these forces that are larger than himself, that are vying for control of everything. And yeah, like basically the rest of this movie, like that's about an hour into the movie. The rest of the movie is just like playing out like him being this assassin, who then gets turned back around after his failed attempt on Bianca, and then she puts a tape into him, and he gets sent back to the other side. You get the Harland grenade hand.
Yeah. That was something I was gonna ask about actually. What happens there? Like,
I think he just shoots him, but in his mind he like blows him up, and then he gives like a quippy action movie one-liner because he walks through the blown hole, but everybody on the street is like not even acknowledging that like a grenade's gone off. So I think that's because
this is we'll keep going, I guess, but okay. It's interesting. I found too, like rewatching, especially this time, like it's a great tool to be like, you have this tumor now, like you're gonna hallucinate, and like who knows when. And he's kind of going through the motions, and you're seeing the movie like kind of through his perspective the whole time. So like sometimes like you can tell it's like, oh, people aren't actually seeing this, that's just Max hallucinating, and other times you kind of can't. They use that like in clever ways. In some moments too though, like I'm wondering if like I'm like reading into it too much as a viewer, or if it like was like on purpose in some moments and stuff like that. That was like one thing too, because like the hand, and again, not to like overanalyze something, because if it is what it is, that's totally fine. But like the hand, I'm like, what is that? Is it okay? It's a grenade, whatever. But like when he's reeling back from the people working in the back like react to it, like his hand got mangled. So it's like, what happened there? But again, it's whatever.
I did make a note that I think it's probably like that, and like the thing with like that really bad jump cut where like the bomb goes off and then they cut away and he just disappears. It's like definitely the worst part of the movie is that one scene. I think it's like kind of like that's like not very well executed. Like, and it's not clear on top of it because you're like, what is this? It becomes like too cartoonish, which I guess is like I agree.
And then like a really small point too that I didn't know we'd get to, but just since we're talking about Harlan, the character in that, I'd never noticed it once the first time, but I do not like how much he uses the word Patron. What is with that? That's I was gonna start counting it. It's like every line he has. He's kind of a funny character, but like he's one of the weaker like ones.
Yeah, the Patron is extremely frustrating, I think.
Because
even Andy said that. She's like, what's up with this guy? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know him.
She's trying to leave a lasting impression as like this unknown actor really outside of Canada. And it's it's Patron guy. That's what people will say. They won't. It's
like a pirate thing because he's like supposed to be like this master piracy guy. I don't know.
A buccaneer.
I think it would have played better if he went with a Canadianism and just said Bud or something like that. It's like a Bud, and then it's like that's more fitting than Patron. Nobody says that anywhere in the world. So.
Well, maybe they did in '83.
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't alive yet.
No, I was just born, so not that far ahead. And then we get to the convention. We have a cigarette girl selling cigarettes at this like dance number that's happening, and then we get old Barry come out doing the sales pitch, and James Woods, he just strolled right in. He shows up, hops up on the stage, and we get Cancer Bullet, which I can't stress enough. It's probably one of the greatest things in Criterion Collection history. That like special effect and like the execution of it is so amazing. I can't stress enough how good it looks. Like, it looks so good. And on top of it all, there's like the added thing that I always forget about, at least the last time I watched it and then watching it again now, is that you also get like the microphone picking up the sound of his like throughout as he's leaving. It's so good, and it's like, love it.
It is amazing, and it's like, you know, they hold on it just for so long. Like they fully commit to how good it looks, and just give you every second to like take it in. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's what makes Cronenberg is like those like moments where you're like, oh, this movie's kind of banal for a lot of it, and then suddenly you're like, what the fuck did I just see?
Yeah.
Because like Naked Lunch has that as well a little bit, like just these like moments where it's like, oh.
Yeah.
I imagine too, like someone probably said to Dave, it was like, hey Dave, do you think we should show this whole thing? And he was just like, yeah.
We need to. This is what the movie is. It's this one scene, and just in a very like he seems like such a soft-spoken guy, and it's like that's what everyone always comments on these things. They're like, he doesn't seem like the guy who would come up with this, but he's like, yeah, this is important, and we really need this, and it's gonna be in the movie. And that's the cancer bullet, you know.
And then
but he holds on it.
And then James Woods runs off to the harbor and holes up in an abandoned ship. And there's some further communications with Videodrome, where we come to Nikki, and we get this like kind of double fake. It's this like fake out death, and then you get the real one. And
they were showing him how to do it.
That's right.
That's how I read that.
Oh yeah, and it's like it's this great final shot, and the movie just goes out, and mwah. Fantastic. I've talked enough. What did you two think of Videodrome?
Well, I'm going to let friend of the show Ryan Nagel go first, but just since we were at the ending, I don't know if Ryan knows this, but so the guts blowing out of the TV and all of these special features, they talk about how it was the guy who was like Rick Baker's like second-hand guy, because he had a whole like crew of special effects men, but like the second-hand guy just went to a butcher shop, got a bunch of like a lot of the crew members mixed up between pig or lamb guts, but they got like pig guts, and they got them, and then they're like, oh, we're not gonna shoot for like a week, and the dude was like, all right, you guys, but this shit is gonna get rank in a week. But they just left it in garbage bags. And then it was like the last day of shooting, they piled it in, and they were like, it was horrible. Everyone was tired. We blew it out, and it was like, but the guts hit the camera, which was the one thing they couldn't do because it was like it blurred the shot. So they had to like fill them all up back into the air cannon and then shoot it out again or something. And all the people describing it, they're like, it was probably the worst day of my entire life because they were working with this like 10-day-old like pig intestines.
Yeah, I did watch that bit of that actually. Like, I think that was in, I don't know if it was Forging the New Flesh or whatever the one was of the effects. And
yeah,
like they had it on like they said they filmed the whole movie from like around now, like late September or like early October into like that. And I think they said they did that scene, the last scene of the shoot, on the Christmas Eve. And I think he said that it took them like over 4 hours or something to load the guts in again for the second take. Like, that's insane to clean it up and load it all up. Holy shit. That's wild.
And all the time it's just reeking.
Oh, God.
Anyways, friend of the show, Ryan Nagel, why don't you tell us about your thoughts on Videodrome?
Yeah, Videodrome. Pretty good show.
Hell
I gotta say. I really like this movie. It checks like a lot of my personal boxes. It's it's right in that magic time, like movies were made that right in this window. It's so good. It's got a really interesting idea behind it, the sci-fi aspect of it, and then the body horror and the effects are just icing on the cake. Like, they're these little nuggets of gold like throughout it, but that are strung together with a really good movie. Like you said, it's like Cronenberg's, I feels like Cronenberg's work like from like the mid 80s to like earlier, like it was all a build up to this, and then kind of explored like worked on other movies obviously like it that were great, but then kind of shifted direction a little bit later on. But it's right in that sweet spot of his career. It's right in those like kind of movies that I really like, so I really dig it. The held up really good, I guess, on a second watch again for me. I'm just reading some of my notes here. Like, you can't say enough about the effects. Like, the cancer bullet is so great, but like even I was impressed again watching like the gun like growing into his hand and stuff. Like they really like commit on that too. It holds for so long, and like it takes a while to really look at it to be like, okay, like you can tell it's not real, but like even that is like really well done. The TV stuff, like the gun in the cathode ray mission, like coming out with like the description of that, and the extras is really interesting. How they had to like make the screen that way and like project like the image of like the TV through it for like the effect of like the light behind it. Like, that's like all so awesome. Like, really, really rad. I mean, I I'll watch like, you know, a horror movie or whatever just for like some great practical effects and stuff like that. And this is like, you know, one of the best, but it's wrapped into like such an awesome movie on its own. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to, let's see some other stuff. I a lot of the things this time around, like I was kind of, like I said, trying to see like how much of it is like the motives behind some of the people, because when you watch it the first time, again, I don't know if we mentioned it, but the runtime under 90 minutes, 89 minutes is amazing. Like like even to Jarrett's point, like at the start you get, it uses its time like so efficiently. You're introduced to things, the settings are like tight, it really like uses like the time, its runtime like super efficiently. And on a first watch, it's easy to just get like wrapped up in the first half where you're like, what the hell's going on, and like you're just kind of curious, but then you're introduced to like these two kind of sides and like their motives and stuff. So I kind of wanted to like focus a little more on that watching it. And there's like some interesting points, like some almost like questions or things I was wondering if we would talk about it here. And again, if I'm like reading into it too much, like that's fine, because the movie probably, that's like not its focus, I feel like, in a way, but it also is pretty like thoughtful like in it as well. So I don't know, but like one point like I guess the one thing at the end that I was almost uncertain of is he's programmed, I guess, in a sense by like Videodrome, and he starts like doing their bidding, and then he flips but from Bianca to in the Resistance. And then at the end he kind of has that moment of like clarity a little bit again, where he's like sitting in the ship and he's like, I'm having a hard time like finding my way, or he's like, I don't know like what to think anymore and stuff like that. And then when Debbie Harris like comes to him, like that's Videodrome coming in the effect again, right? Like it's interesting though, because the Cathode Ray group and like Professor Oblivion, he's like pro leaving his physical body behind, like being like this captured in like in a video sense and stuff like that. So I can see why they would like also be fine to like off yourself, I guess, and like rid yourself of your physical body. But then it like to use Debbie Harris's character, I guess, and like come back to him, and the TV again is coming there, and it's like whenever the TV, it has like Videodrome written on it. So I was like, oh, is he like lapsing back into that? Is that why he kills himself, or is that like the final steps of Cathode Ray mission? What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, it could be just leading him to be like, this is what you need to do now, is kill yourself to end this line, because at this point he's a compromise, right? Like he's a bad, like as an agent he's accomplished what he needs to, but if like the worst case scenario would be him to be still alive. And so if this is like happening, it's like, well, you need to do the right thing, and this is be like, but part of it also ties conveniently, I think, into the work of Oblivion and this kind of war on the old flesh and what the new flesh is. So
it is interesting. Like either way, I could see it like kind of being the next steps for either of the groups. But like it's interesting. You're kind of lost through all of these like hallucinations and people's motives and stuff, and it just ends in a fitting way like that. It's a great ending. But yeah, I was like interested that time watching it again. I was like, oh, this is almost a little more open to interpretation, or at least you could kind of look at it that way. Let's see some of my other things I wrote. Some of the stuff too with that's not even that important. I was looking at some of the points with like Bianca, where they're talking about like when she's like Videodrome as the entity like was using her in the end, but like at what point like was she a hallucination to him? Like it seems like everything in their relationship when she's actually at his apartment is real, and then when she goes, and then it's like there's a point there where she's intercepted and she's being used like as a trigger point for him, or like for his hallucinations and motive and stuff. But that was interesting to watch that again and kind of pinpoint like when that was happening and stuff. She becomes, like I said, a central part of his hallucinations and the movie from that point on in that way. One interesting thing, I don't know if you guys watched it, but or if you looked at it in the supplements, I looked at some of the like the photos that like I can't remember what
The gallery. Yeah, I checked that out.
And they have it looks like they filmed alternate scenes where, you know, where he gets picked up to go to the Spectacular Optical. She's in the limo with him, and then she's like trying the glasses on with him in the thing. I was interested in like how they would have like spun that, if she would have been an agent of Videodrome at that point or not. Probably not, I guess, but
yeah, I think some of them might have actually just been for marketing. So like because a lot of the other ones, things in the gallery were either posters from like international posters or different scenes, and like it could have been an alternate scene, like it could have been something that they changed after, because like the way that they filmed it is kind of like they were like 75% done the script and they were like still writing it as they went, so they maybe filmed it, went back, and then did it over again. Or it could have even just been like they're like, we need some more shots of you guys together for like the marketing. Like I don't know, but I noticed that too. It could have been either one.
I just found it interesting, at least, that it was in there. But I mean, I'm sure with lots of extras, when you look at the photos and like the direction that it changes throughout making the movie. But yeah, I don't know. The movie is awesome. It's you know, it's got a nice tight runtime. It achieves a lot in it. It's like just the right amount of like first half like intro and like really kind of pulls you into this world, and then does a great job like kind of flipping it just enough in the end, in the last half, of being like, what's happening, some misdirection for the viewer, and then like payoff, and the awesome effects are just like the icing on the cake, really. But it's a wicked movie. What do you think, RJ?
I'm gonna chime in, but Jarrett looks like you got something you got to say, big dog.
All I was going to ask was when you guys were checking out these supplements, did you either of you watch the trailer?
I've seen it before. I didn't watch it this one.
Okay, yeah, it's.
I haven't. I didn't.
It will be. It'll play into this part of the episode, but yeah, it's something. Like, it's definitely a product of its era, and it doesn't even use music from the movie. It is, it's its own thing.
Bad.
It's interesting. Like it's like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like it is in no way how they would make the trailer for this movie now.
Yeah. Is that trailer number 1? Because I think on the Blu-ray there's 3 trailers. Yeah.
I think it's number 1. It's like whatever it is. Okay. Like it's like a 2-minute long one. It's on YouTube. But
I saw 3 and I was like, I was already watching all these other. I was too busy watching Samurai Dreams, so I didn't.
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, you got right to it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like that was the same with me, because I've seen the trailers before, but I think I can say this is the first Criterion I have ever 100%ed, because I completed it.
Did you? Did you
I didn't watch the second commentary track.
See, well, then you failed.
I watched one of the commentary tracks. No, I don't care what James Woods has to say about this movie.
Well, you're 95%.
I 95%ed it. Okay. I almost slam dunked it. No. But I do feel like I got enough of his point of view from the other supplements. Right. So I'll tell you what I think about the movie, but the supplements too, there was a bit of there were some redundancies that I kind of wish that they cleaned that up a little bit and put it into one thing, instead of like you have like 4 different like little behind the scenes, and there's a ton of overlap in between all of them, and it's just like, which is fine, because the only frustrating thing is each one had something that wasn't in the others, but then like, I don't know, a fifth of it was recycled footage from the other ones, and it's like, but anyways, Videodrome. I think the last thing I'll say quick before I'll get into it is, I don't think we ever mentioned why friend of the show Ryan Nagel is on this episode, other than his affinity for this. But I think about 4 years ago, when we started the podcast, I think I was like, hey, if you ever want to come on, let me know. We'll be happy to have you. That was way before we've ever even had guests. And I think he said, when's Videodrome? And I was like, oh fuck, like I don't know, like 250 or something like that. It's like it'll be like years from now, and it's like I'll come on then. So we made good on the promise of blessing, Jarrett.
And here we are at episode 216.
I hope the wait was worth it, everybody.
Well,
That just popped in my brain. I was just like, oh yeah. I was like, this has been like long time running, so I forgot. Videodrome, it's awesome. I love it. It's one of the best. Runtime, amazing. Special effects, amazing. David Cronenberg, everything that you guys have kind of mentioned, I'm on board with. I really like his style. I like the way he presents stuff. I think he's so unique, but I like, as biased as it is, I just really like the Canadian feel in his movies, because it seems like I don't want to say like underrepresented thing, because it's like, well, Canada's pretty well represented, but I feel like Canada gets compared to the States a lot, and it's like, it's nice when you have something that's your own.
So the question though is it well represented? Because I think
I say?
Well, no, that's the thing. The stress is like, but is it a good representation of Canada? Because there's things that represent Canada, but I don't think usually they're not very well done. I think Cronenberg's like I'd say like David Cronenberg is kind of like the I don't know, the director laureate of like Canadian cinema. Like, because there's been other directors who've come along, but I think for like Anglo Canada, David Cronenberg is like our greatest director, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, maybe toward like the end of his career, his movies like are less essential, but I think like he's like our best export. Like everybody else, I mean, James Cameron, I don't even consider him a Canadian director, right? Like all his movies were made in the States. He left. Adam McGowan, pretty well, like has kind of gone off into like, no one really talks about him at all anymore, where most people don't even know who Adam McGowan is. Like RJ.
Yeah. I have no idea. I know Guy Madden, but he's
Guy Madden's
very
up there.
Recognizable.
And Guy Madden, well, I mean, Guy Madden, I think to film people are into Guy Madden, but I don't know if there's like a specific explicit Canadianness to it besides like say Future Creep, My Winnipeg. But yeah, I mean, he works in this like kind of super hyper stylized like art style though too in his films, like where they're like these like homages to like film history, where Cronenberg makes movies that, I mean, they fit alongside other films like on the shelf, like genre wise, like they're like different types of tropes of movies. So I mean, he's like, I think probably is. There's one other director that I'm forgetting about off the top of my head, like Bruce McDonald. Yeah, it's like it's quite a big drop. Like there was like Norman Jewison started off as a Canadian director, and is this what it is? I don't know.
Denis Villeneuve.
Well, see, and he is Quebecois. I mean, who's like kind of made that leap there. So he's probably the next best. I mean, he's probably the next big thing, though, right? Is Denis Villeneuve, like internationally? He's a big deal. People love that guy.
And he did get to credit where it's due. He did make a lot of movies in Canada, even recent ones like Enemy. That was all filmed in Toronto, wasn't it?
That was his,
or somewhere in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if I count though. Like the Quebec film industry is so different. Like it's actually really supported, and their movies are considered like real movies outside of Canada. Whereas like, what's the film industry of Alberta really?
Yeah,
it's like nobody, like very few people. I mean, outside of what, Fubar, like how many like Canadian movies have people seen like in Alberta by Albertans or whatever? Not very many. And it's like not until like, well, there's all the productions that are like made in Vancouver. Vancouver is just like the backdrop to like Hollywood productions and other countries like companies productions. The Vancouver film industry is not really about Vancouver.
It's about the lighting.
Yeah,
about bad gray lighting, and then Toronto is like always the urban stand-in, and then the directors. I mean, most people are like, "Oh man, I got to get out of Canada," and then they go work in the States and hope maybe get a job.
Yeah,
you did say Anglo, to be fair. So yeah,
that's true. I think Fubar is a good mention, but I think you're forgetting their very, very prominent, very popular movie Nightbreed by Clive Barker that was filmed in Alberta.
But that's Clive Barker.
Yeah, I know he's not Canadian, but parts of Interstellar were filmed here too.
Well, that's the thing.
Cool
it's like
Runnings?
we're used as a backdrop, but we're like actual as our film idiom. We don't really have, like, we have one, but it's like I put some effort into this like a few years ago, if you remember, RJ. I was checking out that new Canadian cinema, and I mean, I was renting stuff, and a lot of the time it's always like I watch something and be like, that's not too bad, but then you see how it's like received internationally by like people who have no like skin in the game as far as like if this movie was made in Canada, and people go, meh, they don't care. But I'm sure if you threw Charlie Kaufman's name on it, they'd be like 4 stars.
Well, and that's kind of what I meant too by it was I think I have a special affinity for old Dave too, just because it's like he's us. He's all of us. He's the new Flesh, and I'm on board with that. But I love Cronenberg just because I honestly think he's so unique. I think a lot of people try to copy and emulate him, but I don't know. Watching some of these peak Cronenbergs, like Dead Ringers, is still one of my favorite that we've watched ever, because I think that is like the pinnacle of his work, and like Videodrome's like not far behind it for me. But I think it's so unique. Videodrome itself, I do think is like a perfect little package. So even with like questionable acting at sometimes. Like they're all Canadian unknowns. They just kind of pop in here.
Oh, I think
none of that bothers me at all.
I didn't.
Like, I think they all do a good job.
Yeah, I think they're all good. Despite your wife's claims of their schlubbiness.
She wasn't speaking of their acting ability. It was just
their
general
physical
appearance. Because and like I think she has a point where she's so used to like she's like the Netflix kid, and she just sees these Hollywood people get pumped out, and it's like they all look the same, you know? There's no unique features or qualities to these people. You see real Canadians in Videodrome, these guys got like big noses, some of them have huge ears, some of them have like weird moles on their faces.
Do you remember
like,
I don't know if you remember in the commentary with the cinematographer Mark Irwin, where he was talking about Debbie Harry's face furrows and having to light how to light her, because she's like she's obviously like a beautiful woman, but like she has these like little indentations around her like nose, and then I was like, what is he talking about? And I looked it up and I saw, oh yeah, she's got these little divots kind of like in her like upper lip. And he's like trying to like, he has to like light those out, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess like that is literally your job though when you're like the photographer, is to like make people look the best they can. And sometimes it's like their body, it's conspiring against me, and it's really hard to light a movie and like make her look great. And it's like it's just an extra step to like, I got to put this camera here, and she's going to move here, and now I have to light here. And you're like, yeah, that's just like those weird little things that you don't even think about, because it's somebody's job to like make people look glamorous, or just like not bring attention to like something where like, yeah, no, this person looks great, but they have like some weird little like they have a dent. They're like, I have to work around this. But no one talks about James Woods' pockmarked face.
Oh yeah, James
and
Woods,
his fucking his horrible hair.
He is a striking appearance of a person. Like it's he stands out pretty. Yeah.
Remember that episode of The Simpsons with James Woods? When he
where he takes over the Quickie Mart.
He used to run it, and for research for a role, and how charming he was, and now not so much.
We almost made it through without mentioning the questionable behavior of James Woods, but yeah, he's a.
I didn't know about this at all. I'm not gonna look into it. I'm just gonna still live in bliss that I had no idea.
The only thing you need to know is that about once a month he gets banned from Twitter. So
something like that.
That's all you got to know about him. But anyways, I was talking about Videodrome. I haven't even really talked about the movie. You guys have covered so much. You did a great job. But the one thing I'll say about the movie that I really love is I love the central thesis, Jarrett, the main idea, baby, where it's just like, and like Cronenberg talks about it a lot, where he doesn't like the idea of where it's like people say that exposure to violence and ultra violence perpetuates and creates more violence, and he's like, I don't think that's true. He's like, I think we're exposed to things like this all the time, and he's like, I don't think that that's what causes these things. And like even Max Wren says it's like this is an outlet for those people, and like I think it's a really unique idea about actually kind of analyzing that. And the best part about it is I think Cronenberg himself says that the whole movie is about exploring that, but in the end it actually happens. So he's like, it kind of like
turns back on itself. But he's like, but that was kind of the point of it. And I think that's like a really, it's such a nice way to kind of like take in these things, because he's so open about it. He's like confronting these popular ideals, and he's like, you know what, I don't agree with this, let's explore it. And then it actually, like, he even says, he's like, it made its way back. He's like, but I think that's part of what we're talking about. And like they talk about those extras who actually got into it, and he's just like, yeah, he's like, you have some of this, you have some of that, and he's like, but where is the middle ground? And there was one quote on the commentary, he's talking about the ending, and I thought it was super funny and just like very fitting, where he's like, the final victory is that you cause violence to yourself. So when he's talking about like how he kills himself, he's like, that's the culmination of all these things. He's like, all these things come to a head. He's like, but when you actually do harm, it's to yourself. It's not really to other people. And I was like, I like that. I think he's really interesting. Like, it's a really interesting take about, because that's the big thing where he's talking about pornography, violence, horror movies in general. And that's the thing that we always kind of go on about, is horror movies. And like, people don't like that stuff because they're like, that'll give people ideas. And it's like, I don't really think that's the case, but
Like Arthur Fleck?
Well, you get what you deserve, Jarrett. The Joker said so. Okay. Yeah. I love all that stuff. One other quote from the commentary that I thought was super funny was, quote, "There's no sexual precedent for it," end quote. And I was like, that's a unique screen grab. I like that. Mm-hmm. But I can't. The one problem is when you turn on subtitles, you get the subtitles for the movie and not the commentary, because obviously you can't have both. And so there was a lot of stuff in the commentary I would want to screen grab, but it's impossible. But yeah, it's very good. And then I'll just give you guys the quickest, briefest rundown of a few supplements, because this is what the fans want. They always want those supplements, and I did it. We got a short film called Camera. Not much happens.
It stars Barry Convex.
It stars Barry Convex. He's just an old man, and there's some
talking about the camera and
camera,
children making making films.
Yep, it's like 5-6 minutes long. It's there. Then I watched Take One, Fear on Film, which is a panel hosted by Garris himself, and he directs one of these things. I don't know how Mick Garris got involved in the horror community so early.
He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
Maybe you could learn you could learn something from him, RJ.
No, I don't like Mick Garris. He's like, it doesn't matter. But that whole thing, John Carpenter is probably the coolest guy I think that has ever lived. Because whenever they ask him a question, he's kind of like, he's like, why are you even? He's like, it's obvious. And
he's not a great interview, John Carpenter, is what I've heard. He's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, he's not, but I actually really like it, because they're like, Mick Garris asks him a question. It's something really dumb too. It's like, what are movies that like scare you? And he's like, movies don't scare me. He's like, they're fucking movies. He's like, I don't give a shit. He's like, but I like seeing cool stuff.
And then he has another cigarette.
Yeah, and he's smoking on the whole time, and like,
such a badass.
So badass.
And he's still smoking to this day and just plays video games.
Yeah. All he cares about now is video games. Wasn't that tweet he put out? He's like, all I really care about is video games. Yep. And it's like, oh, you're so cool, John Carpenter. So he's really cool. David Cronenberg, I think, is very articulate and smart, and he actually has answers to stuff.
Would you call him cerebral?
He might be. Some might call him that. And then you get John Landis in there, who is like, he comes off like such a piece of shit. Like every time someone says something, he like interrupts. He's like, well, actually, when I made my movie, we did this. And it's just like, no one's talking to you, John Landis. Fucking stop it. And it's like, I see how Max Landis was created out of this. And I mean, John Landis, you know, you just watch that Twilight or read about the Twilight Zone movie. You'll know all you got to know, right? Eyebrow face. But yeah, he's like super smarmy, and because Mick Garris talks about how Rob Bottin and Rick Baker were in each of The Thing and Videodrome, and John Landis is like, well, they were in my movies first, and you're just like, oh, you fucking guy.
And he goes,
yeah, and he does that, and you're just like, oh, what a piece of shit this dude is.
What else we got? Making of. I can't really remember that. Forging the New Flesh.
Before you jump from that, really quick, I watched that one, the making of, and I immediately thought of you because right at the end, it's almost even out of place. But Cronenberg has he is an ally in the anti-animal violence war. I don't know why, but he says it. He's like, it's cheap. And it's not effective, and like all this stuff. I was like, whoa.
But he explicitly says it because it's about actual like violence against an animal for a movie,
right?
Because I think he's down with simulated. Because I mean, he blows up that baboon pretty good in The Fly.
Yeah, he does say that part of the quote I nabbed where he's like, aside. I think he means like aside from the actual violence, he's like, there's nothing that you shouldn't be allowed to show on film. That's like kind of how he ends the thing, but. My ears picked up. I was like, "Whoa, RJ's gonna love that."
And like that's what I mean, man. Like I get him kind of the version of him that's been presented to me at least. I feel him. So making of was pretty good. Forging the New Flesh is the special effects one. Yep. That one is real cool. I really liked that one. It's mostly just Rick Baker and his guys talking about how they did stuff. I like that one a lot.
I'd say if people picked one, I'd say to watch that one probably.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only one to watch, just that special effects one. And then I did watch the one Ryan sent me from YouTube, because this one is not a supplement, but it's Long Live the New Flesh, the films of David Cronenberg. And I would say the films of David Cronenberg, a little advisory. That's a word, right? A little loosely, because it's like they show Videodrome, and then they show a little bit of Rabid and a little bit of The Dead Zone, and that's about it.
Right.
But that one's like individual interviews. Martin Scorsese pops up, and he seems like it's kind of funny the whole time. He's just like yeah, I don't know. It's Cronenberg's a pretty crazy guy, and like that's all he really says. Stephen King comes on and talks about like bugs and shit for a while, and he's like, people are scared of bugs. Bugs are scary, and you're like. You're like, okay, man. And then he talks about one of the stories he wrote, and like I swear to God, I've heard him talk about that story more than like I don't even listen to his interviews. It's like, I've heard you talk about this before in other things. It's like, get away from that. It's not even popular. Then you have Film Critic, apparently, according to according to Jarrett, Robin Wood, the whole time he's on there, he's just talking about how he doesn't like David Cronenberg and he thinks his movies are garbage. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what a interesting choice to throw this guy in there. And then David Cronenberg comes on and he's like, Robin Wood has his opinions, but he's like, they're very superficial. He doesn't even really know what my movies are about. And he's like, if he watched them a little bit better, he's like, he could see a few more things. But he puts it's not as bluntly as that, but he does a good job at defending himself. So anyways, supplements.
And he's dead.
Well, he deserved it. Is what I got.
Did you watch any other supplements on top of those, Jared?
No, that's about it, I think. I just watched the ones I logged. I think it sounds like between the two of you watched everything.
I have two really quick things just because they were too funny to not say. But like you said, I watched the two commentary tracks on Samurai Dreams. The David Cronenberg one is really actually pretty good for like an 8-minute thing where he kind of talks more about his like hatred for censorship. But like the full scene of that, and again, this is a good time to remind everybody that this is a character that I play for the podcast. But they hold way longer on the girl, like lubricating with like Vaseline, like the dildo. Like normally they pull the stuff off and that's all it is. But he said that the MPAA had to sit him down and they were like, he had to cut all of that part out because they're like, you'll get an X rating. Like it's straight up just like a porno now. And he was like, he has a really awesome quote where he's like, I don't know, maybe the head guy of the MPAA, he's like, maybe he's got a thing about cocks. That would be a hilarious grab if you could get that from a screen. And then he also, his last quote from it is he was like, that interaction, it reinforced my hatred of censorship, which has never abated. I love that. That was a really good line.
Well,
and then the other one,
good.
He had a rough
sorry.
time. I was going to say, yeah, he had a rough time of it because of the way his movies, like the way he depicts violence in his movies. Like this was like also during like the like when censorship was very rampant. And then you also had like the video nasty stuff in the UK, and so like his movies were always being chopped up. And it's like, well, that's the worst. Like you're trying to make a movie, and someone's like, oh no, you can't show that. We're the real artists. We're the purveyors of morality, and we're going to tell you what's bad, or because I think it could be viewed this way, which is like, again, nonsense. Like no one should be that person at all. It's a counter to art, and it is in fact garbage. So
And then I can't remember. I wish I would have noted it, but the other one I think is about. I don't know if it's someone in the effects or something about like shooting it, and they were saying that scene for Samurai Dreams was shot in the CFTO headquarters of CTV, like what is now CTV in Toronto. And he was like, it was all on the monitors and everything. Like it was in this place where they're usually doing like panels for like sports or like the news. And he was like, the funniest pull from that is the guy's like, yeah, it was all over the monitors and people in the building. He's like, that was quite something for the boys in Scarborough. I thought that was fucking hilarious. But other than that, you got all the supplements. I watched the same, and they were good.
Yeah. So this is this is pretty comprehensive dip, but yeah, Cronenberg's just one of the boys. Is I think what we're all saying.
one of the boys.
The boys.
Well, who hates Videodrome?
Bad dudes. Let me tell you.
Well, first up, for half a star, Joran Adams. This movie was way too boring for how bizarre it was. How is it even possible? Plot didn't make much sense and was particularly slow. Would not recommend. This review was like from 3 days ago.
Yeah, this is very recently. Favorite films include Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Frank Solano, A Quiet Place, 5 stars, which is like, no, come on, you guys. Come on. Heather's Alvera The Thing and Aliens. So it's like, I feel like this Videodrome should have worked for this person. They just gave Phenomena Argento 4 stars. Strange.
Very
strange.
Morgan, half a star. This sucked. I have nothing more to say about it. Thank you for your time.
At least he's to the point. This person they also gave Heather's 5 stars, which I'm not really sure what that's about. But they also gave your favorite book, Jarrett, 5 stars to Green Book.
Ooh.
Favorite book, your favorite movie.
All those
Green
things.
Book. They gave The Last Jedi 5 stars. Die Hard 5 stars. It's always the same stuff, you know.
Yeah. One more. Sully Walnuts.
Okay.
Note the profile picture. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Polly Walnuts.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And they write David Cronenberg, the Oracle of Sensation. Oh, and preschool storyteller.
I don't really understand that, but they gave Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful 5 stars since that got brought up before. And they will not be on our episode next week as they gave Battle of Algiers 5 stars, which is interesting. But the thing that I think you really need to know about this person, Jarrett, is they gave 5 stars to La Ventura.
Oof.
Which says it all. And half a star to Signs? Get fucked.
Oh,
Get
wow.
out.
Seriously confused people out there.
You know, Robin Wood wrote a book on Michelangelo Antonioni.
Really?
Yep.
Was it good?
I don't care.
Hey, this person also gave Manhunter half a star.
Oh.
Mad Max half a star. Joker, the incel film, half a star. It just keeps getting worse.
Wow.
Worse and worse.
Well,
yikes.
Enough of these people. These haters.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts here as we're at 4 hours of this episode?
Do you think we broke the record or what?
Yeah, or for a regular episode? Yes, we have. Pretty sure.
Nice.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
We shattered it all.
Hey, we gave people plenty of notice. We've been talking about Videodrome for like 3 fucking months. So people, if it was anything less than that, people would have been upset. Right? That's the final thought, Jarrett.
After the break, we all take out our meat guns and shoot ourselves in the head.
Yep.
The end.